It is crazy to say, but we have finally made it to the end of Phase 3. What's up guys, my name is Ryan, welcome to my channel if you're new here. So as I just said, we have made it to the end of Phase 3 of our MCU Rewatch and Review series, which of course means we are talking about Spider-Man Far From Home. And it is after I watched the movie, so I'm just gonna of course jump in and start talking about it, and of course spoiler alert if you have not seen this film. Now when it comes to Spider-Man Far From Home, I know a lot of people really love this movie. It's like a top MCU movie for them. It's one of their favorite Spider-Man movies. In my opinion, while it is very enjoyable, I do also think it has a lot of flaws, which we will get into, but I'm gonna start off with my pros about the movie first. First thing, of course, you gotta talk about is Tom Holland as the MCU's version of Peter Parker Spider-Man. He is really good, and the rest of the cast does a fantastic job as well. You got Jacob Batalon returning as his friend Ned. I love his relationship with I forget the actress's name, but whoever plays Betty Brant, I love their relationship they have in this movie, like how they have in the comics. And I love how Zendaya, who plays Michelle Jones, or MJ, is more prominent in this film, and Peter starts pursuing MJ in a relationship with her, because MJ is Spider-Man's #1 love interest. And although Zendaya is a very different version of MJ, I still really enjoy her character. I love how kind of brutally honest she is. I love how she says that she tells the truth even when it hurts people's feelings, which is a very admirable quality. The truth should be told even when it hurts, and I love that about her character. I love seeing the relationship between her and Peter start to form in this movie. Samuel L. Jackson does a really good job as Nick Fury, although it wasn't the real Nick Fury. We come to find out at the end of the film that it was actually Talos who was impersonating Nick Fury, and Nick Fury's up on this space station. But of course, Samuel L. Jackson does a great job, as he always does. And of course, Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio gives a fantastic performance. I was so excited when I found out Mysterio was going to be in this film, because Mysterio is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. I just think he's so cool and so interesting with the advanced illusion tech that he uses. And Jake Gyllenhaal just gives such a great performance just throughout the film. I love in the beginning how he's pretending to be a good guy, and you completely buy it. Like, he's very encouraging to Peter, and it's so nice to see them work together and to see him encouraging Peter and talking to him and defending him. But then that scene in the bar, after Peter leaves, and we find out that he's faking and he's actually the villain as Mysterio is supposed to be, his turn in that moment was just masterfully well done. Jake Gyllenhaal did such a great job in that scene, and he does such a great job throughout the rest of the film being the villain. I really like how this film kind of shows Jake Gyllenhaal's range as an actor and how he can play both the good, nice guy, but also the very terrible villain. I also find it really cool how they reference previous Marvel movies, and we do flashback to Captain America Civil War, and that we find out that the kind of illusion technology that Tony presented in the beginning of the film was actually Mysterio's. There's this one guy, I think his name is William, who was in the first Iron Man, actually, which was really cool. And I think his motivation, although it is a bit familiar in some ways, he is another villain who has been burned by Tony Stark and who wants revenge. We've seen that in the MCU a bunch of times, but I think his perspective is very interesting. I think it's interesting how he says that unless you're like flying and have a cape and shooting lasers out of your hands, no one will listen to you. And so that's why he kind of wants to give the illusion that he is a hero, so people finally listen to him. I think there's a lot of relatability in his motivation, you know, unless you're a big like celebrity or anything, sometimes people don't really pay attention to you, they don't care about who you are. And it really made you think about the world of the MCU and how people view heroes in this fictional world. One more person I have to mention, the post-credits scene where Spider-Man's identity gets exposed when J. Jonah Jameson from the Daily Bugle, played by J.K. Simmons, appears. That was awesome to see. J.K. Simmons is J. Jonah Jameson. Another little thing I enjoy about this film is kind of the creatures, or I think they're called elementals in the film. Specifically the water elemental and the fire elemental, because I believe there's supposed to be references to the Spider-Man villains, Hydro Man and Molten Man. Actually, after Spider-Man's fight with the water elemental, Flash Thompson makes a reference to Hydro Man. He says something like, there's like this myth that this guy Morris Bench was involved in some experiment and it turned his whole body into water, and Morris Bench is of course the secret identity of the villain Hydro Man in the comics. I love how this film also kind of shows you the effects of what happened in Avengers Endgame when everyone blipped back, when the Hulk snapped everyone back 5 years later, and does a great job of kind of catching you up and giving you insight into how the world is kind of struggling with that right now. I also really enjoyed Peter's story and kind of arc throughout the film, him struggling with the loss of his mentor and kind of father figure Tony Stark, and him struggling to believe that he has to be the next Iron Man. I just love seeing Peter grow throughout this film, and I love in particular that moment towards the end after Mysterio uses his illusions and Peter gets hit by a train, and then Happy picks him up and then encourages him, and then he starts making his suit, and he looks like Tony Stark, and Happy just smiles at him. And I love when he starts playing Back in Black, which is the song that played at the beginning of the first Iron Man. There are also some really cool and visually pleasing fight scenes, or just scenes in general in this film, when Mysterio's using his illusion technology, and especially towards the end. I think my favorite was either probably when Spider-Man goes into the giant elemental at the end, and he's like destroying all the drones inside. Just looks really cool. And then the one when he's on the bridge or whatever it's called with Mysterio, and he uses his illusion technology to turn the whole hallway black, and he really has to close his eyes and focus, and Peter has to use his spider sense. I don't like that they call it the Peter Tingle in this film, though. I much prefer spider sense. Peter Tingle just sounds ridiculous. And just him destroying all the drones in that hallway fight scene was really stinking cool. And the moment when he thinks Mysterio's lying on the ground, but he's actually right there with a gun ready to shoot at him, but he uses spider sense, and he's able to stop him. And I love when Peter discovers the truth about Mysterio and his illusions, and how he's been lying this whole time, how he's actually the bad guy. And I love how Peter tries to expose his lies and take down and destroy his illusion technology. Mysterio says at one point in this film, "I control the truth. Mysterio is the truth." And he has other lines saying that people will believe and see what he wants them to. I just love how Peter fights to expose Mysterio's lies. And I think we as Christians can pull a really good message from that, because that is kind of what we're supposed to do. Paul says in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 11, "And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them." And that word expose, if you look at the original Greek, I forget what the word is. I looked it up right before doing this, but I forgot what it is. But it can also mean to refute, to correct. We should be exposing lies and telling people the truth. Just like how Spider-Man is fighting to expose the truth and take down Mysterio's lies, that's what we as Christians are supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be telling the truth and refuting and correcting false, incorrect theology and beliefs about God. If someone is going down the wrong road and believing lies, we need to correct them and help them see and understand the truth. And there are a lot of lies in our world today. Some may even say that truth is disappearing. A lot of people say truth is relative nowadays, which is completely unbiblical. So we as Christians really need to stand on and fight for the truth and push the truth out into the world and expose the lies and show people why they are lies. And that's kind of what we do on the podcast I produce. If you don't know, I produce a Christian podcast, Further Every Day. We talk about current events through the lens of the Christian worldview. We do some apologetics. We have some other fun segments like fun facts. We do some song reviews. If you're interested and want to check out that podcast, I will leave the link down below to our YouTube channel, but you can also find it anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, and all that. We would so love and appreciate you checking out that podcast. But that's part of what we do on there, is we expose lies very prominent in our world today, and we give a defense of the faith, and we look at scripture for what it says, what it's honestly trying to say, what the intended meaning of scripture is, and help people understand it. And we look at what's going on in the world today, and we try to determine how we as Christians should respond to it. That's just kind of what Spider-Man reminded me of in this film. I think that's a nice little message we can pull out of it, how we need to stand on the truth and fight to expose the lies and tell people the truth, even if it hurts sometimes, just like MJ says. Now, although there is plenty to enjoy about this film, like I said earlier, I do have a decent amount of problems with this film. One problem I have is that although this film is pretty funny, some of the jokes, not my type of humor. They're kind of crude and inappropriate. Do not enjoy that. I especially really don't like the scene where Peter Parker is in that room with that like spy shield woman who tells him to take off his clothes in front of her and put on the new suit, and it's just like, what the heck? What were you thinking? Whoever made that decision to make that scene, like, what the heck? Second, I've said this one before, I've talked about it in my Spider-Man Homecoming review, and I know that it's kind of the point that Peter's a bit younger and more immature. That's kind of the point of the Homecoming trilogy, is him growing and becoming more mature and becoming that more proper classic Spider-Man. But it still kind of bugs me to a certain degree, because I feel like, especially in this film, it has that problem the most, where I feel like Peter Parker is way too immature for his character. I feel like Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, is a much more mature character than how he's portrayed in this film. Like, I think like he's just making some really dumb decisions in this film. But probably my biggest problem with the film can be summed up like this. Spider-Man Far From Home is one of those films that is superficially pretty fun and enjoyable, but when you stop and think kind of deeper about what is going on and what people are doing, doesn't always make a lot of sense. And I didn't notice this at first, but after watching one of Sean Chandler's videos and listening to him talk about the movie, I'm like, oh, dang, you kind of right. He talks about some of the issues with the film and how a lot of things just don't make sense. And now when I watch the film, I just can't unsee it, and I start thinking deeper about this film, and I'm like, oh yes, a lot of this stuff I have questions about. So many things that happen in this film that I'm just like, wait, how does that work? That doesn't make any sense. Like, so many questions pop up in my mind when watching this film. For example, when the water elemental first appears and Peter's just out in the open in broad daylight without a suit, and I know he puts on a mask eventually, but he's still wearing his just regular clothes, and I feel like people could recognize him. Now, I know a lot of people are running away from this monster, but I feel like people could just glance at him for a second and just notice him later, and I just feel like Peter Parker, although his identity is exposed by Mysterio at the end of this film, like, there's so many moments in this film where I just feel like his identity is at risk of being exposed. Another one is, like, in the bar when he's talking to Mysterio after taking down the fire elemental. They're in the bar in their flippin' super suits, and there's other people in this bar, and yes, I know it was all fake. All those people worked for Mysterio. They probably already knew who Peter Parker was, but Peter doesn't know that in that moment, and they're just, like, in their super suits with their masks off in this bar, and I'm just like, someone's gonna see you, dude, and expose your identity. Also, the thing about, like, losing that piece of projector technology, and when Mysterio's rehearsing his, like, final fight in that theater or whatever it was, and William's at the computer working the drones, he said they lost a part of it, and he's like, I didn't think it was significant, and I'm like, bro, really? And then the illusion where at the end Peter Parker gets hit by a train. I just didn't buy that Mysterio bought that he was dead from him getting hit by a train. I'm like, dude, you didn't make sure? You're really 100% sure he was killed by that train? And then Mysterio's ultimate plan, he's trying to be the world's next Iron Man. He wants to be a new superhero. But like Peter Parker says in this film, without his illusion technology, he's just a guy. And all the monsters that he's fighting, it's all fake, it's all illusion tech. But what happens when a real threat shows up? He doesn't have any powers. He's not skilled in hand-to-hand combat, I don't think. How is he gonna protect people if, like, someone like a Thanos or a Loki shows up? His illusion technology is not gonna do anything. Like, what's the point of his plan? I don't entirely get that. I felt like this film just could have used more work and cooking in the story department. Like I said, this is a very fun film, but when you start to think about it, start to really think about some things in this film, it just doesn't really make sense. I think that's all I have to say about Spider-Man Far From Home. I think overall I give it probably a 7 out of 10. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and let me know down in the comments below what you think of Spider-Man Far From Home if you have seen it. I would love to have a conversation with y'all down in the comments below about this movie. Click right here to subscribe if you enjoy my content, and right here's my previous MCU review for Avengers Endgame, of course. Here's a playlist of all my MCU videos if you want to check out some more of my MCU content. And with that, I hope you have a blessed one, guys. I'll see y'all next time.